Hello, it's Vanessa Maria Graber reporting for Hall Monitor with a roundup of what's happening with Philly elections. In case you missed it, more than 90 candidates filed nomination petitions last week in Philadelphia with the Board of Elections to run for mayor, city council, and other citywide offices like sheriff, city controller, and register of wills. Those nominations are collected by volunteers, paid canvassers, or campaign staffers. And what they do is they go all around the city, if it's a citywide office or within a district, to knock on doors and talk to registered voters. Now, if you're running as a Democrat, you have to get registered Democratic voters. If you're running as a Republican, you have to get registered Republicans. Now, an additional 28 people filed petitions in Harrisburg to become candidates for judge because we also have judge races this election season. And so, what happens is after those petitions are filed, there is 1 week for the public to be able to review those petitions and ascertain whether or not they're valid. And so on Tuesday, that was the deadline for members of the public. They usually are residents from the district, voters who have reviewed the petitions and then file something within the Board of Elections and the courts to challenge those petitions. Now, for citywide offices, you need 1,000 petitions and they all have to be legitimate. So many candidates get 2 or 3 times the number of petitions. We saw with Rebecca Reinhardt, she got 10,000 petitions and she only needed 1,000. Similarly, with mayoral candidate Sherelle Parker, their campaign also collected 5,000 signatures. Now, if you're running for a district office like city council, you only need 750 petitions. Again, it is a good idea to get 2 or 3 times the number of petitions in case a challenge is filed. And so, challenges are filed by voters, but they tend to be affiliated with an opponent. They don't have to be, really, anybody can file one, but usually they're friends of a campaign. What we saw on Tuesday is that only one mayoral candidate is being challenged, and that is Amin Brown. Not surprising, given his past history with lawsuits and other allegations around his finances. 11 of the 29 Democratic candidates for city council at large will have to, respond to the challenges. And then 17 out of 26 candidates for council's 10 district seats, according to the Philadelphia Inquirer. Shout out to them for collecting all this information. What does that mean? Well, what happens usually is a document is filed in court and it gives the legal basis for the challenges. And so when you look at the documents, you can see the names of the voters, or if it's just one voter, and the name of the candidate they're challenging and the reasons why they're challenging. Now, if they're going to take it to the Board of Elections and have a hearing in court, usually it's because most of the signatures are not valid and it's below the legal threshold. So let's take, for example, Rebecca Reinhardt. She has 10,000 petitions. Say 2,000 of them a voter reviewed were not valid. It's unlikely that petition would be filed with the Board of Elections because they're still way over the legal threshold of 1,000. Now, when you look at some of these other challenges and you see that maybe over 3,000 signatures were collected, but then when they did a review, they found only 500 were valid and you need 750, that's when you would want to file the challenge. It happens when they don't meet the legal threshold for petitions. And so, what happens during that process? Well, usually it's a bunch of volunteers or people, like I said, affiliated with the campaign who get a copy of the petition signatures and they come on sheets, right? And each sheet is numbered. So they go line by line through each name. And what you have to put on the petition is your printed name, your signature, your address, and the date. And so all of those things have to be correct. So where it says printed, it actually has to be printed. You can't have a signature. Similarly, where it says signature, you can't have it printed. It has to have the correct date on it, the correct address, and the address has to be complete. If you're missing an apartment number or some other element of the address, or you get the zip code wrong, that can be invalidated. And so those are the types of mistakes that people are looking for. Now, when you go door to door and you are collecting those signatures, you have to be a registered voter in Philadelphia. And so if somebody is not a registered voter or they're not from Philadelphia, they're called and those people are called circulators. The circulator can be marked as ineligible, in which case that invalidates the signatures that they're collecting. So you want to make sure your volunteers or your paid canvassers are actually registered to vote in the city of Philadelphia, and that information is accessible. Otherwise, the circulator will get invalidated. Other things that we see problems with are just missing information, ineligible writing, and also sometimes you see that the handwriting appears to be by the same exact person. It's really unlikely that you would go door to door in a neighborhood and get the same exact type of handwriting from a variety of people. So if you see a sheet that looks like it's in the same exact writing, that's going to send a red flag to somebody who's reviewing those petitions. And so those are the kinds of things that you would see in a petition challenge and what will be disputed in court. And so many of these court dates are coming up throughout the week. And what happens is a candidate has the ability to challenge those claims made against them. So maybe you have a circulator that is in fact registered and they're saying that they're not. You could go to court, you could prove that circulator is in fact registered to vote. A lot of times, one of the biggest challenges we see is the circulators are doing a good job collecting the signatures, but the people are maybe not registered voters. You have to be a registered voter. It has to be up to date. Your address has to be correct. You can't be registered to vote at another address and you put someone else's address, or maybe you didn't update your registration. All those things have to match and line up. And when they don't, those petitions get invalidated. And so one of the things you look for are a lot of trends, right, and patterns in the data. If you're seeing that the majority of people are not registered to vote, it begs the question, what information, what database are you using to knock on doors and find the registered voters? If you're using old information, that can ruin all of your sheets. And so again, there's a lot of factors at play when it comes to collecting petitions. And then a number of things can happen. Two opponents, right? Like they could come to court, both challenging each other's signatures, and they can actually negotiate and drop the challenge against each other. And that has happened where you come to terms and you say, you know what, I'm going to drop my challenge against you. You drop your challenge against me. And they get the voters who are the ones who are actually challenging to do that. Or you might stay hold to your claim and say, no, these petition signatures are not valid, and you're going to do your best to win in court. Ultimately, a judge decides. So in some of these races, all the candidates can get invalidated, and then we'd have to have a write-in campaign. Or the judge could uphold the signatures and say, actually, these signatures are valid and the person has enough to get on the ballot. So we'll have to wait and see how this all unfolds in the next week and see who actually makes the ballot. Not so sure about Almond Brown. We'll see. But if he gets kicked off the ballot as a mayoral campaign candidate, that will be a really big deal. We definitely expect a lot of the at-large candidates, there's 29 of them, at least some of them are not going to make the ballot. And again, with the district council seats, we'll also have to wait and see. So lastly, I'll end with a mayoral forum that was held yesterday at Gloria Casares Middle School in Kensington, which is in District 7. 11 candidates, or I believe 12 of the candidates came out to the forum where they were questioned by elementary school kids. And so we had Warren Bloom, Almond Brown, Alan Dom, Derek Green, Helen Gim, David O, Sherelle Parker, Rebecca Reinhart, and Maria Quinones Sanchez. They were all there contributing to the discussion. There was a lot of things that were said. Most are things about education and school that we have heard before. Nothing new, But I do want to end on something funny that was said, and that was with one of the candidates talking to children, of course, saying that there is no Santa Claus. What, you might ask? Well, yes. Warren Bloom, a Black captain who's running for mayoral candidate, he told the students his to repeat his campaign slogan. He said, "Vote for Bloom in the spring. Let's do it right. I'm from the hood. I'll do you good." And then he went on to say, "There's no Santa Claus. You can't put your faith and hope in politicians." Um, that was probably the funniest thing that was said throughout the evening. And again, when you have a group of kids, you really wonder what the point was of that. But anyway, that is your election roundup for the week. I'm Vanessa Graber reporting for Hall Monitor. Thanks.